Welcome back, dear friends, to another episode of Crusade with me. I'm so glad you've come along for today's journey, and if you've been walking with us through these past 62 episodes, you know this more is than a podcast. It's a crusade, a challenge, a call to live boldly, anchored in truth and driven by faith. And if you're new here, welcome. You're joining at just the right time. Well, hello, my love.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
I know you are. I know you are.
That's a good morning.
Good. We're not back on our schedule completely, but we're getting closer.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, we are.
So yeah, it's a bright and shiny day.
Yes.
You're feeling a little bit better. You've gotten some sleep.
I got some sleep with the help of,
Yep.
modern medicine and other things.
God.
And God.
God and nature.
Yes.
Yes.
So it's a promising day and looking optimistic.
Yes.
Feeling
And we've
optimistic.
not talked about this, and I think this is appropriate because this episode is kind of connecting what we've talked about over the last 62 episodes, just kind of bringing people along if they've just listening for the first time or they joined and listened to the last 5, kind of give them an overview. But something we have not really talked about, and you had, in our last episode, we had talked about my travels for work to Cleveland. And you talked about, you love Cleveland Clinic. And so I just, for transparency and being real, and we've shared many times about chronic illness and things of that nature. So, that you were diagnosed with Meniere's.
In 2001.
2001. Okay,
So-
I was trying to remember exactly, and it was, 2001.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what led us to Cleveland Clinic. And it's a cool story, right? Because if you remember that trip out there,
Yes.
that long, boring drive down the
Yeah.
Ohio Turnpike, which I can't
Yes.
stand. Okay.
Yep.
To what, as my boss refers to, and I don't feel this way at all, the mistake on the lake.
Yeah, I don't understand that either.
Well,
I'm sure there's a backstory.
I'm sure. Well, I think the history of Cleveland is I was very impressed with my visit. And it was so much nicer than it was when we were there when were we there?
2005.
2005.
I sound like my dad.
It was, well,
He always knew the year to everything.
there's a reason for that, and you know what's wait for breakfast.
Well, those big things in my life, I definitely know the years
Right.
of those kind of things. But is the mistake on the lake referencing the Cleveland Browns? Is it?
No, that's referencing the city from my understanding. I had never heard this term.
Okay.
And I
guess we're
apologize to anybody who is from Cleveland listening. I do
football
apologize.
Fans, I guess I just related.
Well,
to
I mean,
football.
but you could say mistake on the lake about the Bears. I mean,
Bears,
how many
I
times have we
know,
sat
I
in the
know.
stadium and looked over the top of the stadium in Lake Michigan, right?
I love the Bears, but it's been a while since we've.
And for
Been since '85.
and for all the Roman Catholics out there, now we got the Pope. Can't go without mentioning that. But anyway, so Meniere's is a disease that affects your vestibular nerve in your ears,
inner ears.
in your inner ear, in one of your ears. And in 2001, they didn't have a lot of options.
They still don't have a lot.
I
of
know,
options.
but they did have this thing that you had researched on the pubescent internet, quite literally,
Well, yeah.
right?
I searched and searched for.
I
anything
know,
and
I know.
everything.
And so they had something called a the Mignette device. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
And that is what we were praying to God when we were driving out to Cleveland.
No, it's actually gentamicin injections is what we
I thought we were going out there asking if he would install the Mignette device, or that was an option, and the other option was the genomycin,
which kills
Right.
the vestibular nerve. Yeah.
Yeah. So we drove out there, and if no one's ever been to Cleveland Clinic, I will say, I remember going with my parents to Mayo Clinic when for my mom, and just what a difference between going to our family doctor in Gary, Indiana, right? And I love that guy. I mean, he delivered me. He's actually the one who informed us that you were pregnant with Andrew.
Yeah.
He's the one who removed my appendix when I was 12. They don't make doctors like that anymore.
Right.
He did it all.
That do it all. Right.
Yeah.
Now they're specialists.
The Marcus Welbys.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
It's literally.
Right.
Mom and Dad had his home phone number.
Yep.
That's just so. Anyway, those people have patient care down to a science. And when I say patient care, it's probably not even so much about patient care. And I hate to relate everything to what I do, but I have to relate stuff to what I know, right? And Eli Goldblatt wrote a book in 1984 called The Goal. I have it. I just took it to work and put it on the bookshelf at work for people to use, to read. And it's called TOC. It's about the TOC, or theory of constraints. Much more easily remembered just by saying a bottleneck. And what's a bottleneck? If you've ever had a garden hose and you kink the garden hose and then it restricts the water, that's a bottleneck, right? Or that's the theory of constraint. The theory of constraint also can be applied to the medical field. What's the most important part of the medical field? Right, wrong, and different. I mean, it's designed this way. It's the doctor. So you have to have a buffer in front of your constraint or your bottleneck so that they're not waiting. And then you have to have a rope or a pull to pull things through. So scheduling and a receptionist is the buffer. They always overschedule doctors, right? Because guess who's the constraint? It's the doctor. Doctors aren't leaning on their elbows waiting at the receptionist desk for you to walk in and say, "Oh, you're here. I've been waiting for you," right? That does not happen.
Correct.
But they are so efficient at, from my recollection, and this is going back to the late 70s in Mayo Clinic, and then in the early 2000s at Cleveland Clinic. Do you remember that? How big the waiting rooms were in both instances. I remember that. But we didn't sit long.
Oh, no. And we went from place to place to place, and they scheduled that all that day. It wasn't like...
Yes, that is a model of efficiency.
Right. I mean, we got into a neurologist that day. We didn't have an appointment for him, but they scheduled one.
So let's speed this up. So over the course of time, we went there thinking one thing. And again, this relates to Sunday's episode about we make God small.
Right. Yes.
Right.
We were not expecting that.
We were.
Back that up just a little bit. I mean, we had gone earlier in the summer.
Yes.
We'd gone to University of Chicago.
Correct.
I had already been to Northwestern University to see the so-called God of Meniere's.
Right.
And everybody had turned me down.
Correct.
Could help me. None. Zero.
Correct.
So this was kind of like a shot in the dark to
Correct.
get
great.
Dr. Hughes, who is no longer with us anymore.
Great context.
So
we need that for this.
We didn't even... It was a pipe dream that I could even get the surgery, so we were just like settling for a lesser.
Well, when you say the surgery, we didn't know that surgery was an option when we drove out there.
I didn't think I was going to get it. When we're referring to the surgery, it's a VNS surgery. It's a vestibular nerve section, which is when they cut your vestibular nerve
intentionally,
completely.
Right. So we go into this office, and we sit in this huge lobby for just minutes, and they call us back, and we go back, and we meet this Dr. Hughes, who I didn't know. I mean, you had researched, but I don't think you really knew who he was, or
No.
you didn't know what doctor we were going to be seeing. You just knew we had an appointment. And you kind of he asked
My story.
your story, why we're here, and you kind of give him the history, because in 2001 you started
Right.
having these
And I had tons of
episodes
tests.
and spells. We call them spells, and
Yeah.
they're episodes of violent vertigo.
Vertigo, vomiting.
And I was genuinely concerned because not that you've never been a big girl. I mean, you're 5 foot nothing, and you were
98 pounds.
less than 100 pounds at that point.
Yeah.
And you had not that you had refused, but it's hard to eat when you spend every other day and you're laying on the floor vomiting and can't hold your head up.
Right. Yep.
And so I was worried about, okay, as you know, I am no medical doctor, and the best never mind, I'm not going to go
Never.
there.
Don't go there. No. I don't know what you were going to say, but I have a feeling it was going to refer to something sexual. So
It was.
I know you.
My
I
best
think
biology.
the listeners know you now.
I was going to say the best biology I know is the waist down, but anyway.
Stop. I think I encouraged all that. I'm
Yes, you did.
sorry.
So we go in to see Dr. Hughes, and emotionally you start telling him, because for lack of a better term, we are a little desperate, right?
Yes. Yep.
I'm desperate because I want you to gain weight, because it was disturbing when you were when changing clothes or what have you, or you look like an Auschwitz prisoner.
I would cry when we pulled out clothes and I couldn't wear like zeros anymore.
Correct. It was
yeah.
bad.
It was
bad. And and it got worse before it got better, but that's not unusual. All right.
Right.
And you're asking about this genomycin or whatever it was, or the Mignette device, and he says, quickly. I mean, you gave your talk, and it was about 10 minutes of talking, just to summarize the history.
Right.
And basically the first words out of his mouth were, I can do all those things, but why don't you let me fix you?
Yep. And I thought,
and
fix me. I didn't
fix, that was never an option, never discussed anywhere.
Right.
And come to find out, we're sitting in front of the guy who invented this crazy thing that you had read about.
I don't think he invented
Well,
it.
he wrote the book on it. He wrote a book on the vestibular dissection.
Right. But I don't think he invented it, but he was.
But he does it
at it. Yeah.
regularly.
Right.
And he was the only one in the country that did.
I-
With regularity. His words, not mine.
So, yes. So he said, do you want to do it? And I said, yep. And he looked at the schedule. He said, how about next Friday?
Great. This was a Friday. I had taken off work.
Now I'm scared. I'm
Right.
scared because the side effect of this, and he explained it in great detail. He held back nothing. Was okay. We cut into your brain. It's basically an intracranial brain surgery.
He first said we drill a hole,
in
and then
your
we
head.
cut into your brain.
And he was an otolaryngologist. So there's an ENT, ear, nose, and throat doctor. Then there's an otolaryngologist, which is basically the study of the ear. And then there's a neurologist, which is what I currently have, and they do how the brain and the ear work together.
Right.
So if I would have had a neurologist, which I have now, he could have done it by himself.
Right.
So he was an otolaryngologist, so I needed a neurologist. So basically the neurologist just drills the hole, resects the nerve, and then he does all the, Dr. Hughes did all the work. So,
Correct.
So that's why I had to go see a neurologist. So, that same day. They
And was that guy's name Dr. Lee?
Yes, he was a big Notre Dame fan. So
His
we
kid
we
was at
had
Notre Dame at the time.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So he was. We had that commonality.
Right.
So, anyways, he said, "How about next week?" So the side effect of this was once they clip that nerve, you spin violently for 72 hours.
Right.
And you think you can prepare yourself for that because you're like, okay, well, I've been spinning at that point, I've been spinning for 6 years or
Right.
4 years. So I'm like, yeah, I can handle this. And
Well, he also prefaced that by saying, "Look,
we'll give you as much
you're
medication.
gonna be sedated, and you will not remember this." That's
Oh,
what he said.
Okay, well, I remember every second of it.
And this was the beauty of this. So, one, I think the 7-day timeline was a godsend.
Yes.
Because I think longer than that, you would have had way more time to MF yourself.
Right. So we just booked it. We did it. We did everything that day to prep for the surgery.
Correct.
Drove home. Did everything we lined up
Contacted everybody because I
everything.
don't even think,
Yeah.
I probably had a Nextel at that time. I don't know.
So that's that story. And unfortunately, I was bilateral and didn't know it because it was so severe
In one ear.
In one ear that
Right.
overlooked the symptoms in the other ear. So fast forward, I'm just trying to clean this or move this train along. In 2010, at that point I was seeing my current neurologist in Indianapolis, and so then I had a indolymphatic sac decompression in the right ear, which they go and they shave part of the mastoid bone so that the inner ear
sac has
it
room
can
to
drain.
expand.
And so that was honestly, besides the spinning, that was a much more horrid surgery.
Yes.
The recovery was better because let me just tell you, when you only have one vestibular nerve, I had to learn to hold my head up again.
Straight. Yeah.
I had to learn to walk again. And I guess I should have known when insurance called me and said that I qualified for home health care. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm good. I've got my husband and my mom. I'll be fine. I did not realize.
Your mom came back from Ohio, and you said she went back. I don't remember her ever going back.
One weekend and packed up. My mom and dad sold their house, and they came and they moved into our
6
subdivision.
houses down.
6 houses down. Yep, they never went back. But anyways, the recovery was long and tedious and hard. And
for both, but even the second, the invalid sac decompression, that was much more. I think we thought that was going to be much more mild, but when they basically remove your outer ear, they basically cut it off and fold it over, and then access your cranium from the ear hole in their skull.
Yeah.
Right.
So I can't do any. So I did try some steroid injections in that right ear because obviously they can't kill that.
No, because
then I have no balance at all. I'll be a vegetable, sitting.
Well, but the positive to that was you did have in-home health care. You had me and your mom.
Yeah,
right.
You would shower me with a bathing suit on while my mom stood outside the shower and
handed us because I had to, one, hold you up to make sure you were not going to fall down, but two, yes.
So the struggle has been over the last 15 years since the second ear surgery is just treating it. But I have been, luckily, thank God, for the last pretty much 7 years, I've been very, very well.
Right.
Until
a week ago last Wednesday.
Yes.
And so for people who heard my bride and her almost despotic state, understand that she was, I don't know the words to use, but this is a word thrown around probably way more often than it should be. Suffering from a little PTSD, for lack of a better term, related to your illness and kind of rearing its ugly head again.
So it's also taken my hearing, and I've had hearing aids for the last 10 years, and unfortunately one of them bit the dust, so I've been trying to limp along with one, and now we're going to head off at the end of the month down to see my doctor and talk about the recent events of these spells, reemerging, and also talk to him about possibly getting, the bone conducting hearing
Cochlear
aids.
implant, yeah.
Because again, if someone's going to drill into my head,
You
it's
want it
going
to
to
be
be
him.
somebody that's already seen the inside of my head. So that's a positive because, with Meniere's, there's so much tinnitus and so much fluctuation of fluid and stuff. I think those are going to be the best hearing options for me because that part really does affect our life. Except when we're doing a podcast. This is the best I hear you.
Well, we're
Is with
sitting
these
here with
microphones
these
and
Rode Podcaster Pro 2
Yeah.
headsets
Yeah.
and
and
our
that's what
Shure microphones.
and I think that's what really got my brain thinking about doing the bone conducting hearing aids because of doing this podcast. It's like, why can't they make something that's
Right.
more like this, where I can hear like this?
Yes.
So
And God does have a sense of humor. So
absolutely.
I've worked in heavy industry for over 30 years. And for the majority of those years, I never wore hearing protection. It wasn't a requirement.
Uh-huh.
And so my hearing has diminished. Well, there's two, and I don't want to blame this all on work. I want to be real clear. I'm not blaming it on work. It's my own fault. But I've also participated for many years in some pretty ear damaging sport like shooting, right?
Right.
So those are things that work against my hearing and my age. So yes, I have diminished hearing in both ears, one worse than the other. You have no hearing in one ear and very diminished in the other. And I can't hear high tones.
And I can.
And you can't hear low tones.
And you are very low tone.
Speaking. So I try to talk to you like Tweety Bird, but I can't do that. I can't get there.
It's a sad day when we have to use my mother as the interpreter. Dinner is very interesting around here.
She spends more time laughing at dinner than she does eating just because we're struggling to communicate and understand what each other is saying. Not a lot different than I think I shared on the last podcast about last week, listening to these speakers. And I'm sitting in front of a speaker because I strategically sat there.
Right.
And I thought, why are we talking about terrorists? I don't understand. It's 2025. What's the big push on terrorists all of a sudden in private industry?
Right.
And they're talking about tariffs. I'm like, oh. It took me 2 days to figure out what.
I have to say, when you were recording the last episode and you said tariffs, I thought you said terrorists.
See?
So I will.
See?
I'm with
Yeah.
you. I'm with you. So I think we talked all about that one because we just wanted to clear up what
Yes.
there's been
Yes.
some illusion. So we just wanted to clear that up. But also, I wanted to have my own little prayer request because I know this is going to drop Tuesday.
Yes.
But my eldest brother, who was out here last weekend to visit,
That was a great visit.
right,
Great
with
visit.
with my niece.
What a beauty she is.
Yes,
I mean, what a doll.
That's a whole other story. She has just emerging like a lovely little butterfly. Unfortunately, she talks like this.
Yeah.
So I heard nothing she said.
And you were wearing my Walker shooting muffs, which
Right.
block out gunfire but amplify voices, and you still couldn't hear.
Right. But anyways, so my brother has, I call him Jiffy Pop. I don't think he knows that I even call him Jiffy
No,
Pop.
well, it was written. You wrote that on the calendar, Jiffy Pop.
Yeah, I
something
don't know if
about,
he saw that.
Yeah,
But anyways, in December, so he has multiple myeloma. And he was just diagnosed in January of last year. So this is not a long time thing.
no, right.
But in
And he's a year younger than I am. He's a young
Right.
man.
He's 18 months older than me. So we were born very close together. So in December, he had a stem cell transplant. And he is considered high risk. So he is currently in the hospital at Northwestern getting his second stem cell transplant. So this is day 2 of stem cell.
Yes.
So I am taking my mother, and we are going to be up there this week to stay with him because my sister-in-law has to, step away for a day or two.
Well, she's been there since.
Right. Well, she's still trying to work,
Correct.
and work from his hotel room, but there's something she has to do for work. So we're going to go up there. So I just have a prayer request because, with everything going on with me, I'm very, very nervous to make that drive. So I need, some prayers to get me there, get us there, and get us home safely. I mean, because needless to say, I have not driven in a week and a half. So
I know. This is when I wish I still had my Dodge Ram truck. I'd put you in that to go to Chicago.
No.
It had that big steel bumper on the front. I mean, the big cattle pusher and all that.
Yeah.
And
No. I just need to, just praying to get there and get back. And
Hemi V8 engine, push those yo-yos out of the way. And anyway.
I don't want to hurt anybody or hurt myself.
Well, they wouldn't hurt you because you'd have been in the truck, but
I know, but I don't want to. Anyways, so that's the whole reason for all that.
Yeah.
So just prayers.
And I'll be, look,
prayers for Jiffy Pop.
Prayers for Jiffy Pop. I like that name. I'm not going to use his name. Prayers for Jiffy Pop. And I had asked over a week ago when he was here that weekend, I really wanted to sit down and do a podcast with him, do an episode, just to talk to him about, we're all different and how he receives what we say, what people say. I think that could be very insightful, and Jeff's a smart man. Jiffy Pop is a smart man.
Yes.
And I would like to get his insight. But honestly, I think his mind had already shifted into this. He's in preparation to go in for this second treatment.
Right.
And he didn't say no. He just said not that weekend because
he wanted to think.
He wanted to think. And I'll be honest with you, I gave him a list of 10 questions I really want to ask him.
Yeah.
And he said, these are great questions. He says, but I can't even think of answers right now. Right. And I don't want to have prepared answers, but I do. He says, there's answers I know I want, but like one of the questions was about what did he find most encouraging or whatever. And he said, there's a book at home. I just can't think of the name of the book. I have to find the book.
Right.
Those type of things. And I get that. So, and no pressure. I don't, and I told him, I said, look, we'll do this. We can do this. And we may never air it. I'll let him listen to it. And if he wants us to air it, then we'll air it. And if not, hey, it's his.
And I would love to hear his answers.
Yes.
And I'm sure going into this, your second round, it's a blessing and a curse.
It is, because you know what's coming. There's a lot of
uncertainty the first time of what's going to happen.
But now you know.
But now you know exactly what's coming. And let me tell you, it's not pretty. I mean, he just now got all of his facial hair and hair on his face, and he's looked more normal, back to normal. And now to know you're going to lose all that again. And
so let's have some time to contemplate and pray for you in travels and the Queen Mom.
Yeah.
And obviously,
because she ain't going to take over and drive.
No. You would better be spinning, driving from the back seat than letting the Queen Mom drive. And of course, continued, contemplation and prayer for Jeff and that team that is overseeing his care.
He has a wonderful doctor.
He does. And his bride.
Yes.
Who, she's kind of princessy, but she really, I'm proud of her. She kind of put on combat boots.
Yeah. Well, she likes to think of she's a nurse.
Okay.
And she is.
I didn't mention that she is a little bit delusional, too.
Would you stop? She's going to smack you.
I don't even think they listen to this stuff.
Yes, they do.
Do they? Okay.
Yes, they do. She's doing a great job.
She is. I'm. That's it. She's put on her combat boots and all this, and in the trenches and slugging it out.
Yep.
Okay. All good?
I think so.
Let's re-rail. Okay, today's episode is called The Way, Real, Rooted, and Rising. We're going to look back at where we've been, tie it all together, and press forward. And here's our focus: becoming real. Real with God, real with ourselves, and real with others.
I like it.
My friends, if there's one thread woven through the Bible, from Adam and Eve hiding in the garden, to the Israelites wandering in the wilderness, to Peter weeping bitterly after denying Christ, it's this: God calls us out of hiding, out of our false selves, into the light, into the way. Let's breathe deep and begin. So over the past 62 episodes, we've walked through some incredible terrain. We've seen the force of God's creative word in Genesis, the fall that broke the fellowship, and the long, winding path of restoration that leads all the way to the empty tomb. We've talked about thriving in hard times, sickness, financial struggles, relationship strain. And we saw that our God is not distant. He provides a path through the wilderness, just like he did for Israel. In the Force, the Tao, and the Yahweh, we started to sense that the way things flow, the movement of life, the give and take, it's not random. It's patterned, ordered by God, like a stream that knows its course. Then in our darkness episode, we didn't turn away from pain. We acknowledged it, named it, then proclaimed that the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness cannot overcome it. We stood at the cross in our Good Friday episode and rejoiced in the victory in winning. We ask ourselves then, what are you becoming? Are we being transformed or conformed? All along, we've called each other crusaders, people on a mission, not perfect, not purposeful. The way is real. No masks. No pretending. So now today, I want to invite you to take that next step to be real. You see, the way, the path that Jesus shows us, the road walked by Abraham, Moses, David, and Paul, it's not about pretending. It's not about putting on a holy face while inside you're crumbling. The world teaches us to wear masks. Smile when you're broken. Say, I'm fine, when your soul is screaming. But God's story says otherwise. It says, come as you are. Confess. Repent. And then rise. Remember when we looked at Philippians 4, 8, and 9? Whatever is true. That starts with you being true. True to God. True about your struggles. True about your victories. Just being real. And here's a secret that isn't really a secret. When you're real, you become free. Free to change. Free to grow. Free to actually love. Because you're not performing anymore. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Not a way of appearances, but a way of reality. Does this make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I was going to say, so sharing our story earlier, my story earlier.
Yes.
None of that is, all of that is to be true, to be real. None of that is to be a victim.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely
clear.
right. No,
That's
that's a great point.
We've talked about that a lot.
Great point. I'm glad
About
you brought
not
that
being a victim, and my motto is don't be a victim, be victorious.
Correct.
And all of that is about, not all of it, but some of that is about overcoming. And
Sure.
I'm very clear about relying on God to get me through, and I try very hard.
Well, and that's what you want. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the flow of the way.
Yeah.
Rooted like a tree, but moving like water. So let's go a little deeper into that.
Okay.
Have you noticed that the Bible uses natural images? Trees planted by streams, rivers flowing from temples, wind blowing where it wills. This is no accident. God's way is like that. Steady, rooted, yet always moving. So Psalm 1 says, the blessed man is like a tree planted by streams of water, not a dead stump, not a tumbleweed blowing aimlessly. A tree, rooted, but alive, growing, bending with the wind, but not broken. And Jesus says in John 7, whoever believes in me, streams of living water will flow from within them. Friends, that's the pattern. Rootedness and flow. Stability and flexibility. Grounded in Scripture, but open to God's movement in your daily life. So think back to our episode on Lent. We talked about the darkness and the light, that rhythm, the heartbeat of the way. When you embrace that, you stop fighting the seasons of your life. You learn to move with them, like a river that flows around obstacles but never loses its direction. And this is where strength comes from. Real, rooted, rising. So how to be real and walk the way? Let's get practical. All right, it's not, or if you want to be real, rooted and rising, here are what I think are 3 steps that you can start today. Number 1, daily honesty with God. Take 5 minutes every morning to speak openly with God. No script, just raw, honest conversation. Tell him your fears, your sins, your hopes. That's prayer. Mm-hmm. That's real. Tip number 2. Scripture meditation. Pick one verse each day like Psalm 1 or John 7:38. Sit with it. Let it soak in. Let it shape how you move through your day. That's how you get rooted. Tip number 3. Authenticity with others. Find one person this week you can be honest with. Drop the mask. Share something real. That's where rising begins. When you no longer hide. And remember this. You don't have to fix everything today. But start. Begin to flow. So, my fellow Crusaders, this is the invitation. Man, I felt very Church of Christ-y just saying that. You know? Most people listening to this are like, what? Step onto the way. Not as an act, but as your true self. Real. Rooted. Rising. We are all, I want everybody to get this. No matter what we've said, and I just want everybody to get this specifically today. We are all part of God's great story. From Eden to the wilderness, from the cross to the empty tomb, from darkness to light, and now it's our turn to walk the path. Let's be people who stop pretending, who embrace the flow of God's Spirit, who stand strong like trees, but move with grace like water. That's the way. And you, my friend, are called to it. Thank you for crusading with us today. If this episode stirred something in you, share it. Reach out. Join us again next week as we continue this journey together. Until then, stay real, stay rooted, keep rising, and as always, crusade with me.